Hi, I'm Kim Robinson, AgFirst consultant in Northland and also Trust Coordinator for Northland Dairy Development Trust. Just going to go through the results from the last season on our dairying in a variable climate trial over at Dargaville. So firstly, we'll go through the overview of the season, how the challenges went with the drought and also the wet spring, and then we'll move on to the financial results. And we'll look a little bit at the cost of that extra milk that we made with supplement, and we'll also look at the sensitivities to some of the prices, and finally review the lessons that we learned. So just going over the trial structure again, I'm sure a lot of you know this already. We've got 3 farmlets. They all run independently of each other. Our pasture-only farm has a slightly lower stocking rate because there's no imported feed on that farm, completely self-contained. We've also got our palm kernel only farm, the red farm, which feeds palm kernel during pasture shortages. But of course we have to do that within FEI limits, which became quite significant last year. And then we've got our PK Plus farm, our blue farm, which feeds supplement during pasture shortages. We start off with palm kernel and then we feed other supplements as we need to, usually DDG and sometimes a little bit of silage. Just reminding you that our farms are randomly allocated around our research farms. So each farm is 28 hectares, but you can see the farms are scattered within the farm so that each of those farms is identical. The paddocks are all marked. The cows stay in their own paddocks and each herd is milked into a separate vat. So we can actually capture exact milk production and milk composition changes too. So going back through our challenging season, as you can see, our pasture growth, as most of the North Island probably, was quite severely affected by drought in the last season. You can see that blue line there, particularly here, was the effect of the drought. We got a little bit of rain in March here and our kikuyu kicked away, which was quite lucky and quite significant really for the results of the trial. I suspect if we'd had straight ryegrass, this line would have carried on along here and we would have lost quite a lot of milk in here. So you can see we were about 2 tonne down on our long-term average per hectare, which was pretty significant. Pasture cover, again, effect of the drought can be seen there, and a little bit that wet spring. We really struggled, and it wasn't really until May that we finally started gaining a little bit of pasture cover. So as a result of that, I guess we used a bit more supplement this year. That table shows all of the supplement fed, but you can see that some of that was made on farm and fed on farm, which is a homemade silage, and then other supplements were purchased in. The cost of the supplement was pretty standard. It was around about $300 a tonne of palm kernel plus $24 a tonne delivery, and the DDG was $5.60 a tonne plus delivery into the silo, which is about $60. And the bales that we bought were $80 a bale plus $10 cartage. So those costs include delivery. As expected, pasture eaten on our farms fell, but not by quite as much as we expected. So although our growth dropped a couple of tonne, our pasture eaten dropped by somewhere between 1.2 and 1.7 tonnes. As a result of that, of course, we imported a lot more supplement this year, as I'm sure most people did, and that was about 33% more supplement fed this year than the previous year. So looking through to milk production, so if we start back in about August, we can see the effect. We had quite a nasty wet month in here, August, September. The red herd hit FEI trouble in August, so we had to limit the amount of feed that we were feeding in there. And also we fed a little bit of DDG and silage on the blue herd here, as we obviously were up against FEI, so we carried on feeding extra supplement in there. Our poor old pasture only herd, our green herd, they really struggled. We ran out of silage in early September there. We lost condition score quite quickly on those cows. So the first thing we decided to do was put the whole herd on once a day. In late August, things still hadn't really recovered by early September. And as I said, we ran out of silage, so we had to destock that farm. We had to remove the cows that were below 3.5 condition score. Unfortunately, and that had quite an impact on the rest of the season, but actually probably helped us a little bit through this period, coming through the summer with that lower stocking rate, ironically. You can see the effect of the FEI kicking in on the red herd through the summer here. We had to dry off about half of our PK only cows in March because it was just too difficult to stay below the FEI grading line. So we dried off half the herd, which allowed the milkers to get a bit more pasture and allowed us to stay in B for FEI. So again, as expected, our production for the year dropped. We dropped down sort of between, I suppose, 30 kilos a hectare on the blue farm and about 200, nearly 200 on the green farm, 180. Obviously, the blue farm was a bit more resilient because we fed more supplement and didn't take those hits. The green farm, we had that drop in the spring as well again, and as a drop later on in the summer, so they got quite badly affected. Coming on to condition score, again, you can see the effect of the wet spring on those poor old green cows. They lost weight very quickly after calving, despite all the herds being at 5 at calving. And we were down around 3.7, 3.8 herd average in August, which is when we decided to put the cows on once a day and destock a little bit, and they recovered really well. And then from that point on, there wasn't really much difference in condition score between herds until right at the end when we were feeding quite a lot of PK in this late period in May to catch those PK herds up. And we obviously didn't have that available in the green herd, so we're still a little way behind there, but hoping to catch up. So despite that difficult spring on the green herd, that month of once a day really helped, and we ended up with no differences in either 6-week and calf rate or empty rate on that green herd. So really resilient herd, and certainly that 4 weeks of once a day was a great tool to use for that short period of feed shortage. Worry score, now this is our manager who scores his worry level out of 10 for each herd each fortnight. So looking back in the spring again, as you'd expect, this green herd was quite a worry because they were losing weight quickly and we didn't have much feed to feed them. They dropped a bit when we put the worry score dropped a bit when we put them on once a day, but it came right back up again when we ran out of supplement. So that was quite significant. There was a little bit of FEI concern through here on the red herd, but things dropped off through the summer and then, through the spring, and then we hit the summer and away we went on worry, particularly on FEI on the red herd. That was quite a struggle to keep on top of that. And of course, just trying to keep those green ones fed. Blue herd, which is our palm kernel plus herd, fed all those supplement, but stayed at a low worry score most of the way through really, and rose up a little bit towards the end with the drought lingering, but yeah, pretty much not very stressful at all, that herd. FEI, as mentioned, was quite a challenge in the red herd. That's the green herd there, pasture only herd. You'd expect that to be quite low, but here's our red herd. So we were bouncing around up and down into that C level a little bit in the spring, and then a lot more so in that autumn period, and that was quite stressful. As we said, we actually dried off half of our herd in this period to just try and get on top of that FEI. The blue herd, where we're able to manipulate the amount of PK that we're feeding and top up with particularly DDG by that stage, we were able to control the FEI quite well, and that herd really went quite well through the autumn. So coming back to the financial results, the proof is in the pudding. When you look at profit, we did produce quite a lot more milk on the Palm Kernel Plus farm, and certainly at the milk price that we had, $7, that was the most profitable farm this year. Last year, you'll notice that the PK only farm was the most profitable. Lower milk price last year, and obviously not the big drought. One of the key things on that slide is the difference between years. So all of those farms dropped significantly in profit per hectare this year, $600 to $1,200 a hectare drop. And that was despite our high milk price. So that really shows that cost of the drought really kicking in. Pretty huge, over $100,000 on a small 100 hectare farm. So pretty huge. So that extra milk that we produced on those supplement farms, we can calculate the cost of that by comparing it back to our pasture only farm. For each extra kilogram of milk solids that we produced on our PK only farm, cost us about $6.50, and each extra kilo on that blue farm cost us about $6.30, just under. It's interesting to note that feeding supplement increases your other costs quite significantly. Most of these are labour and machinery. And certainly in our experience, as we record the time spent on those jobs, it's round about 60 to 80 cents for every dollar that you spend on supplement. And it's important not to forget those extra costs. So you might be thinking, I'm spending this much on supplement, but the hidden cost is all the extra machinery and the labour time. And I think farmers realise that when they spend a lot of time feeding out for a long period of time. So looking at the sensitivity to different prices, the first one we look at is milk price. So what would have happened if we'd had a $6 milk price this season? Surprisingly, our pasture-only farm still would have been the most profitable. And this is really because that marginal cost of milk was more than $6. It was sort of $6.27 to $6.50. So if our milk price is below that marginal extra cost, then we're going to make less money. And that's what would have happened. So I guess the message here is that just because you have a drought doesn't mean that your supplement is going to be profitable. You actually need to have a drought and a relatively good milk price as well in order to make money out of that supplement. Sensitivity to PK price. So again, we looked at profit change when we changed the PK price by $100 a tonne. It was around about $300 to $400 a hectare that our profit dropped if our PK price went up by $100 a tonne. And I'll just note that it's not usually quite that sensitive to PK price. This year it was more sensitive per hectare because obviously we used a lot more PK per hectare. So that sensitivity in a normal year would probably be more like $250 to $300 a hectare difference with each $100 price increase. The other thing that we looked at was our response rate to palm kernel. We can calculate this by, again, comparing back to what we do on the pasture-only farm. So we can calculate that by putting X amount of supplement in and getting X amount more milk. We can calculate back our response to supplement. So again, we averaged about 100 grams of milk solids per kilogram of dry matter fed of PK. This is quite similar to last year, and we actually consistently get around about 100 grams of milk solids. If we had changed that response rate or not used that supplement so efficiently, we would have lost a lot of money and profit. So the profit per hectare is very sensitive to milk response. And there's quite a strong message in here, I think. Profit is more sensitive to response rate or how well you get milk out of your supplement compared to supplement price. Interesting that although our responses tend to be 100 grams of milk solids per kilogram of dry matter fed each year, I think the dairy base average is calculated somewhere around 70 to 80 grams of milk solids per kilogram of dry matter fed. So you can see, particularly at these higher milk prices, if you can move your response rate up from 80 to 100 grams, that's, you know, $400 or $500 a hectare of profit for you. So very worth doing. So what goes into getting good milk responses? It's actually quite simple. Just minimize the supplement wastage. So we feed our palm kernel mostly in concrete bins on the feed pad, or occasionally in a trailer in the paddock, quite similar to most other farms. The other thing that we do is we really have a strong focus on pasture residuals, and we have a set of decision rules that we're very disciplined in sticking to. We look at the pasture residuals. If the pasture residuals are too low, we put supplement in, and if they rise above target, we pull supplement out. So we only look at residuals, we don't look at the VAT, and we don't let the production drive our supplement decisions. And as a result of that, quite simple, we get really good responses. So looking back at the season, what are the lessons that we learned? Well, unfortunately, our pasture growth was down by 2 tonne a hectare on the long-term average, which is significant. Our pasture eaten was down by 1.2 to 1.7 tonnes, so I guess we actually became a little bit more efficient at eating what we actually grew. But unfortunately, our profit was down by $1,000 a hectare despite that good milk price. And I think most people will be seeing that in their cash situations at the moment. Take $1,000 a hectare of profit away, and you can certainly see it in your cash flow. The other surprising thing was that our pasture only farm was really quite resilient to drought. Now, certainly Kikuyu was a major contribution to this. We got about 10 or 15 mils of showers in March, and that Kikuyu took off and grew 25 to 30 kilos a day. The ryegrass paddocks didn't take off. So I guess if we'd had a ryegrass farm, that may have been quite a different result. The other thing is that those cows are probably 0.3, 0.4 of a condition score behind the other two at the moment. So we'll have to see whether that drought cost carries on over into this coming season, and we'll capture that in the next coming year. The other lesson, which was again a little bit surprising, was the marginal cost of that extra milk was still over $6. And really just underlining that bottom point, which is that profit is more sensitive to how you manage your supplement and your pasture than it is to supplement price. So I guess the main message from that would be that rather than spending an afternoon on the phone trying to get, you know, save $20 a tonne on your palm kernel, you're probably better to go off and walk your farm and have a look at residuals and make sure that you're really keeping a close eye on those all the time. Be prepared to pull your supplement in and out. We do it all the time, and it doesn't have any impact on our mating results, and it doesn't seem to upset the cows too much as long as the residuals are correct. So do it gradually, do it often, monitor, and hopefully you'll get those good responses that we got. Thanks again to all our supporters and our funders. We couldn't do this work without them, and we've got one more year left of this trial, and we're not hoping for another drought, that's for sure. But it has been quite an interesting year having the drought, and yeah, interesting results coming out of that. If you're keen to learn more or come and have a look, we're quite happy to host groups. Have a look on our website. Message us on Facebook or email, and yeah, we'll make something happen. Or if you want to ask questions or get more information, yeah, just give us a buzz. Okay, thanks.